Jeff's side. He's the modern day Greek god superhero and arguably one of the most aesthetic fitness influencers in the world. He's most well known for having amazing proportions, and one big reason to why his physique is so aesthetic is because of his V taper. What's the V taper? It's essentially your delt to waist ratio. A huge component of your V taper is actually your back muscles, so specifically your lats, which contributes to your back width. And while most gym bros hit their back quite frequently, the thing is most guys at the gym lack that aesthetic V taper along with a dense cobra back. Luckily for you guys, in today's video, I'm actually going to cover 3 back exercises to incorporate in your back routine so that you can start developing that cobra back. Now, before we dive into what exercises to hit, we should first cover the anatomy of the back. For simplicity's sake, the back is made up of 2 primary parts, your back thickness and your back width. So your back thickness consists of your trapezius muscles, and then your back width consists of your latissimus dorsi, aka your lats. Now your back also has the rhomboids as well as the rector spinae, but we're not going to cover those in detail since I want to keep it simple. So just for this video's purpose, let's just talk about back thickness and back width. When it comes to your trapezius muscles, you really want to work on both rowing motions. So typically with a pronated grip, similar to when you're riding a bicycle, so you just want to row like this. This pronated rowing motion targets your middle and lower traps, and then a shrugging motion such as this target your upper traps. This will contribute to your back density look. When it comes to back width, you basically just want to perform shoulder adduction and shoulder extension. So shoulder adduction is like this, and then shoulder extension is like this. So essentially the way I like to think about it is any like pull down movement, such as a vertical pull or a straight arm pull down, will really target your lat muscles, basically helping contribute to your back width. So now that we covered Anatomy 101 for the back, let's talk about how to develop that cobra back look. To break this up simply, we're gonna split this up into 3 different movement patterns: horizontal pulling, vertical pulling, and isolation work. Horizontal pulling refers to going side to side, so something such as a seated cable row, or essentially just going back and forth. So we'll focus on movements here that target the mid traps, just because horizontal pulling, you can really hit those muscles the most effectively. A few of my favorites are chest supported plate loaded row. Make sure to use a pronated medium grip, seated cable row, and then inclined bench brace dumbbell row. When it comes to vertical pulling, this is best used for targeting your back width. My personal favorites are neutral grip lat pull down, pull-ups, and then one arm lat pull down on a lat pull down machine. When it comes to traps, I like to use any shrugging variations, so I feel like dumbbells keep it simple. Pro tip when doing shrugs and any back movements is to use wrist straps, and then I personally prefer using Versa Grip since they're really convenient to use unlike traditional wrist straps. And then when it comes to lats, any straight arm pull down motion with the cables is really good, so easy bar straight arm pull down or rope cable pull down, and then also doing iliac cable pull downs. The great news about back training is it's actually really efficient, since while you can do horizontal pulling movements and vertical pulling movements, at the end of the day, both pulling patterns target both your back thickness and your back width, so your traps and lats, which means that as long as you're incorporating some type of back compound movement in, something such as a row or pull down, then you're usually good to go. The reason I recommend including both the vertical, horizontal, and isolation movement is because you essentially cover all your bases to make sure that you're making the most gains possible. While training your back is super efficient, there are a lot of mistakes people make when it comes to targeting their back. So the first mistake is people just plain and simply go too heavy. It actually is really easy to do this when it comes to back training, since if you do something such as a bent over barbell row, it's super easy to use a lot of momentum to pull the weight up. But the thing is, if you use momentum to pull the weight up, you're not targeting your muscles for hypertrophy, because when it comes to hypertrophy training, you really want to just focus on slow and controlled contractions so that you can get a solid mind muscle connection when training. The next mistake a lot of people make when it comes to back training is not using a full range of motion. This actually goes hand in hand with the last mistake of going too heavy, but essentially the heavier you go when you're lifting weights, the harder it is to do the full range of motion. However, if you cut your range of motion short, then you're not targeting your back as effectively as possible, so it's actually just much better to go lighter with good form and full range of motion. Plus, you also decrease your chance of injury. So people tend to get injured when they're hitting their back because they not only go too heavy, but they use the wrong range of motion, and then they get hurt. And one of the biggest killers of gains is injury. So as long as you can stay injury free and eating a caloric surplus, you're gonna make gains. The last common mistake I see is people fail to do isolation movements. This is especially true for their lats, but people will typically hit pull-ups, pull-downs, rows. However, they won't do the isolation movements. The thing is, your lats are quite a small muscle group when you compare it to your trapezius or traps. So you really need to hit those isolation movements to target all parts of the lats. If you just incorporate incorporate something such as a straight arm rope pull down or iliac cable pull down, you're gonna see that your lats will start growing a lot faster. And this is just because you can hit them in a way that's more efficient compared to purely doing compound movements. And that's a wrap. In order to hit your back effectively, you need to start hitting all three movement patterns: vertical pulling, horizontal pulling, and isolation movements. And I personally recommend training your back 2 to 3 times per week, depending on if it's your strength or weakness of your physique. That's how you want to prioritize it. And you'll see that once you start incorporating these tips into your workouts, you're going to start developing a cobra back that's wide and thick, and it's going to really help make your physique aesthetic.